Hey YouTube, welcome to my channel. I'm Nikki from Janick Fashions, and in this video we'll be going over how to create a ruched skirt. I got this really cute sunflower print fabric from a mystery box, and I was super excited as I was going through the mystery box and found that lovely print. In the moment that I saw it, I knew exactly what I wanted to make. So here's the skirt that I made, and I absolutely love how it came out. I'll be walking you through all the steps required to make this skirt, and I have a surprise for you at the end of the video, so keep watching. I think you're going to want to see it. If you're enjoying my tutorials and you want to see more like it, don't forget to press like, don't forget to subscribe, and press the notification bell. In order to make my ruched skirt, I have a regular pencil skirt here that I'm going to be using as a pattern. I have my fabric here that stretches in this direction. I got that from a mystery box, and I will link that below. And I also have my extra wide elastic that I'm going to be using for the waistband. Other than that, everything's just regular tools. My fabric is folded in half and then half again, and it stretches in this direction. So as you can see, it's folded in 4. And here is the fold line of the fabric, and here is the fold line of the skirt. I folded the skirt in half as well. Notice here that my fabric is much longer than the skirt that I'm using for a pattern, and that's intentional. The reason for that is that when I ruche the skirt, it is going to pull it up and the length is going to get much shorter. So I want to have more fabric that I can work with so the skirt doesn't get too short. So I love this fabric so much that I wanted to just keep staring at it. Totally forgot to turn it inside out. So now it's inside out. Now the seams where I'm going to put the seams are pinned together. Normally when I'm sewing a pencil skirt, my next step would be to sew up my side seams. However, if I do that at this stage, I am going to interfere with the casing that I need to make in order to get the ruching done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin my hem and sew it at the machine at this step before sewing up the side seams. And this is key. So in order to get my hem, fold twice. And I pin to hold it in place. I do it for both panels, the front and the back. After pinning each hem, make sure before sewing them that they line up appropriately so that when I put them together it will look like it was done at one time. So I just took this to the machine, and here is my zigzag stitch. So when working with stretchy knits like this, it is important that you do a zigzag stitch or another stitch that stretches, because when you put this on, you definitely are going to want it to stretch. You're probably going to tug on it this way as well, so you want to make sure that you work with a zigzag stitch so that you do not break your garment. In order to create the ruching, we're going to need to create a casing that we can put a string through. In this case, one wonderful thing that's going to happen is that I'm going to do 2 things in one. I'm going to sew down my side seams, and then I'm going to use the side seams in order to create that casing. So first I'll sew the side seams, and I'll make sure that I have approximately 1 inch, a little bit less than an inch seam allowance, and I'll be using that seam allowance. Here I have my seam allowance. Notice I didn't trim it, I did not serge it. I am going to use it in order to create a casing. So I'm going to take the seam allowance, separate it, and I'm going to sew a casing using the seam allowance on the left and on the right side. So first I'm going to pin it so I can make sure that I'm doing it with some guidance. I've pinned along where I'll be sewing, and now I'm going to take it to the machine and top stitch that line and that line on that side. In order to sew this, I've turned it right side out. So here we have our skirt, and I'm going to feed it in this direction and sew all the way down through the inside. And this I can do on a straight stitch, and I will be doing on a straight stitch because I don't want to see the zigzag on the other side of the fabric. Alright, so here's what it looks like on the inside, and I can clean that up a bit later on. And on the outside, here's what it looks like. So you can, if you look very carefully, see those lines of stitching, which is why you want to make sure you work as neatly as possible. Now I'm going to put together the string that I'll be using within the casing in order to create that ruching look. So in order to create a long strip of fabric, you take multiple strips and you put them together in an L shape like this and sew along the diagonal. And when you open that up, it creates just one longer piece of fabric. Once you've sewn your strips together, make sure to cut the excess fabric off as close to the stitch as possible, but be careful not to cut through the stitch. How long does each strip have to be? Each strip must be at least 2 times the length of your skirt, because each strip will be going up the casing and then back down the other side of the casing. So I have 2 strips that long. I'm folding the fabric in half like this, and I'm going to sew all the way down in order to create my first strip. And I'll use the presser foot as a guide to make sure I'm doing this straight. Turn to the zigzag stitch because you may need to stretch this as you're turning it over. Now I'm gonna cut off the excess fabric so I can turn it around. And I pin the end. You want to make sure that you pin it very securely. And you're going to feed it through. And this is going to take some time because it's a very long strip. And you're going to just pull out the other end. I just finished turning over the string. And I left the pin in because I'm going to feed this straight through the casing that we created through the bottom. I'm going to feed it through the bottom all the way through and then around and back down the other casing. I've pulled the cord all the way through and now it's coming out the top, and I'm going to pull some more so that I have enough length to stick it back in through the other casing at the top and all the way down. So now that it's coming up through that casing at the top, I push it back down through the other casing on the other side. Alright, so I tied a bow here temporarily and I'm going to knot the ends. So just in case that bow wants to come out, things don't slide out. So the last thing that I'm going to work on is the waistband, and I'll be using this wide elastic for the waistband, but I don't want it to be black. I want it to be the same as the current pattern here with the sunflowers. So I'm going to measure out what I need, and then I'm going to cover it with the sunflower fabric. So in order to measure what I need, I've laid my skirt flat. So I'm going to position it to where I want it to be, so that's where it's going to be. I'm going to give it a little bit of extra space here, and I am going to cut it. So my fabric is placed to stretch in the direction that the belt will stretch, and I'm going to, almost like I'm wrapping a present, in order to see how much of this fabric I need, fold it over like that. Notice I still have this here, so I'm going to need more than 1 strip. And these are wide enough where I can join them regularly, right side to create a longer strip. Alright, so I have this pinned here and just making sure it does fit the belt. So I'm going to join my 2 strips together, right side to right side. So that's what that seam looks like, where I just joined the fabric. So I'm folding this in half. There we go. And I am going to put the middle of this onto the middle of the seam here. Alright, so here I am wrapping up my elastic, kind of like a present. And yes, the intent is for the right side to be out because I am going to top stitch this. And once you have it positioned how you want it, and this is stretchy fabric, so you can even stretch the fabric over the elastic a little and pin it into place. And ideally, you want that seam right in the middle of the elastic. Do not forget, you're working on the waistband, make sure you are using a zigzag stitch. Now we can sew our two ends together. I turned my waistband inside out and upside down. So as you can see, the exposed seam is right here, and this is the top of the waistband, so it's upside down. And I turned the skirt right side out, and it's the correct way around. And I am connecting the seams together. So I'm matching up right side to right side, and I'm going to pin all the way around on the inside. The final step here is to sew the waistband on, and so I'm going to do that right now, and then I'll be done. Okay, so if you made it to this point of the video, you're probably wondering, what is that surprise that she was talking about? Well, I had just enough sunflower fabric to make this matching shirt. So yes, that's right, I do have this outfit, but I also have this outfit. In the upcoming weeks, I'll be releasing tutorials to show you how I made both the black halter top and the sunflower shirt. So if you don't want to miss it, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell.